Hey up YouTube, this is dgshop.uk. This is the first of a set of tutorials focused on Photoshop basics. These are specifically designed to support my advanced fine art training tutorials available through my website. Today we're looking at layers and masks, fundamental Photoshop functionality that you use in every image you create. So there we have it, let's get to it. Okay, Photoshop editing works by taking your original image and then adding layers on top of it as you work towards your desired result. There are two types of layers available to you, image and adjustment layers. Image layers are what we're looking at here, the pixels basically, and you can stack them together to create a composite image, and I can show you what that looks like. Here on the right hand side we've got our layers panel, and this little eyeball here shows you that that's what we're looking at, this layer. And I've taken a copy of this, flipped it over and lined it up with the top of the bridge, and I'll show you what that looks like here, so that it creates a slightly interesting geometric shape. So because this layer's on top, it is visible over the original image that we were looking at. So I'm just going to, using this eyeball again, make that visible and invisible just to show you before and after. And we have adjustment layers. They apply an effect to all of the layers beneath that adjustment layer. You can brighten, darken, add contrast, color corrections, and many more things. So for example, if I wanted to make this image black and white, which I usually do, I would click this circle here that's almost a yin-yang look, and it would display to me all the adjustment layers available. Within there is black and white, and that appears on top of our two image layers, and as you can see, it turns the whole image black and white. I can delete that by right clicking and selecting delete layer, and select a different adjustment layer. So I might want to brighten the image, for example. Brightness contrast is one of the methods we can use, and we can just dial that up or dial it down. And we're able to stack adjustment layers on top of each other to build an overall effect that we want to apply to the image. So I've darkened that image slightly, and I can come back and choose black and white again, and that will place a black and white adjustment layer over the top of that original adjustment layer where we darkened it using the brightness control. And these are all non-destructive, so I can go back in and select this little circle here, which will bring up my control panel, and I can change that brightness back up, and it will affect the final image, and take it back down again. And still, nothing is set in stone at this point. Only the image layers are destructive rather than non-destructive. And what I mean by destructive is basically that your changes are then set in stone. So for example, if I was to create a snapshot of the image that we see here on top of our brightness adjustment layer, so I could do that. That's created what we call a stamp of the image. If I was to go back into our brightness control and change that, we can see it's having no effect. And that's because we've created an image layer, and all of the settings that were built up have then been set in stone from that point. I can create a new brightness adjustment layer on top of that stamp, and then affect the brightness of that image. So everything up until that stamp has been set in stone by this image, and then I can add layers on top of it to continue to adjust it as I see fit. Some of the more common adjustment layers that we'll be using in our black and white editing process. So if I select this bottom adjustment layer here and hold shift and select this here, I can delete everything above it and start again. Well, the more common adjustment layers we're going to be using are curves. So this is your histogram here, and we've got our black point down here and our white point up here. It works just like curves adjustment does in Lightroom. So we click a point on there, that sets that point, and we can just dip our shadows down. The shadows are in this area, and lift our highlights up. Highlights are in this area, and that will give us a more contrasty image. You can turn that off and on again to show you what that looks like. And you can actually go in and specifically select areas of the curve that you would like to adjust. So say if I want to bring this path down, I can select this little picker tool here, select the path, and then bring that down. Just delete that, and that brings the brightness of that path down. It'll affect the entire image as well at this point. Another adjustment layer that we're going to be using is levels. Levels is a simplified version of the curves adjustment layer. So you've got your histogram over here, and we can bring the white point down here. We can bring the black point up, making more things black. Taking the white point down makes more things white. And then the midpoint adjustment will make things darker. We push more of the histogram into grey to black. It will make them lighter if we push more of the histogram into grey to white area of the tonal range. And then you've adjustments down here. The white point, making that grayer basically. So we can take that, if we reset and take that down, you'll see all of the white is turning grey. And the black point, we can bring that up to grey. So all of the black will wash out and turn grey. So that was a short introduction into how layers work and adjustment layers. And now, hand in hand with layers are masks. Masks allow us to cut out part of the layer, whether it's an adjustment layer or an image layer, so we can only see certain elements of that layer. And the example I've got here is where I've taken the top part of the structure and flipped it over. I've actually cut out these areas here that were previously down here, look, where you've got elements of the buildings, and I've cut them out of this one so that the original buildings all up here are visible through that structure, so it looks like it's part of the image. And this is what a mask looks like on your screen. So when you create an adjustment layer, you automatically get a mask with it, and when you create an image layer, you don't automatically get a mask with it, and you can add one by going to this box here with the circle in the middle and clicking that. The masks default to white, and white means that all of the image is going to be visible. And black means that any element that I've painted black on the mask will show through to the lower layer. As you can see with this one, all we've got is this structure here being visible. So if I show you what that mask looks like, holding down Alt and clicking on the mask shows you what the mask looks like. It's very crude, did it very quickly, but here you can see I've got white, the element of the image I want to be visible, which is the structure, and I've got black areas for the part of the image I don't want to be visible, which is the sky, and I wanted the underlying sky. Clicking back on here shows you what the original image looks like, so you can see. White for the structure, black for where I want it cut out and to show the building from the original image going up, so it's got consistency. I can show you what it looks like to adjust a mask as we're going through. So I'm going to create a levels adjustment, and I'm going to make the image darker. So the adjustment was created with a white mask as default, which means that the whole of the image has been made darker. I'm going to Control and I that, which inverts the mask and makes it all black. So none of the image is going to be affected by that change I just made. So the entire mask is black. Now I can paint in, using a brush, white areas onto the mask. So B for brush, and currently I've got black selected. I want white, so I'll press X, and I've got the mask selected here. Anything I paint with this brush now will turn darker, because it will be affected by that levels adjustment I just made. So there we go. Look, we're making things darker. I'm just going to paint this little triangle here, as just a crude way of showing you how it works. And we can go and look at the mask, holding down Alt and clicking on the mask. And there, that's a little area I've painted, and that's the area in white that will be affected by the layers adjustment I made, which made things darker. I can go and make it even darker if I want. So black, I can make it lighter, but only that little area of painted will be affected, and that's how masks work. Now say if you've spent some time creating this little section that you want to be adjusted by the mask, and you've got it just right. Obviously I haven't here, I've done it very crudely, and there's little gaps along the edge that you can see that aren't made darker, and I've gone over the edge in some areas, but you'd spend the time in getting that absolutely right so it's perfect, and you want to use it as part of another adjustment tool. Maybe you want to make that area black and white, then you can right click on your mask, you can add mask to selection and go and select. So now we've got a selection. These are marching ants, show you what you've got selected. And you can create another adjustment layer, black and white, that will have the same mask as you've got there. And you can delete a mask by right clicking and delete layer mask. And it will default to a white mask, even though it doesn't show it because we've deleted it. The default is a white mask, so the entire image now is black and white. And finally, what I'm going to show you with layers is you can adjust the opacity of a layer as well, basically how visible it is. They all default to 100%, but we can take that down, dial that back. If we hold and click on opacity here, and then hold and push your mouse left, we can dial that back, and you see this colour start to come through, and go back and back and back all the way down to 0. And now we've got our original image. So it's got 0% opacity, it's not visible at all, that layer. Even though it's got the eye selected, opacity is 0, so it's invisible. We can click and hold and push it back to the right, and take that all the way back up to 100%, and we're back to black and white. We can also do it using this little down arrow and this little pointer here, or we can physically type in a value into the box, 50%, and we've got quite a desaturated image now because it's halfway to black and white. Okay, that's it for layers and masks. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a great day.